see white lies dancing between the lines. She's an atheist. Carousels in her mind, spinning all in her eyes. She's an atheist.
Hello and welcome to the Digital Freethought Radio Hour on WOZO Radio, 103.9 LPFM here in Knoxville, Tennessee. We're recording this on Sunday morning, March 19th. I'm Larry Rhodes, or DJ Doubter 5, and as usual, we have our co-host Wombat with us. Hello, Wombat.
Hey, I'm the Wombat.
Our guests today are John Richards from England, south of London. Welcome.
Hello.
And Dread Pirate Higgs from the western side of Canada. Welcome.
The northern western side of Canada.
There you go. Digital Freethought Radio Hour is a talk radio show about atheism, free thought, rational thought, humanism, Satanism, Pastafarianism, and sciences. Conversely, we also talk about religion, religious faith, gods, holy books, and superstition. And if you get the feeling you're the only non-believer in your town, well, you're just not. Here in Knoxville, in the middle of the Bible Belt, we have a group of over 1,000 of us. So if you're here in Knoxville, come out and meet with us. We're the Atheist Society of Knoxville, or ASK, and we'll tell you more about it after the mid-show break, so be sure to stick around. Wombat, what's our topic today?
We're going to be talking about Greta Christina's book called 99 Reasons. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's find out. Let me get the actual video. Why are atheists so angry? 99 things that make people angry about the godless. So some choice of vocabulary. We're going to get into it in more detail and do some highlights from her book. But before we get into that main course, we're going to throw it up to our own Dread Pirate Higgs for our daily dose of noodles.
Arr, of pasta and sauce, my heart doth sing, as I knead and roll the dough with glee, and in the pot the noodles doth cling, and the sauce simmers merrily. O flying spaghetti monster, bless this dish with your noodly appendages divine, and let the meatballs bring us bliss as we feast upon this meal of thine. For thou art the saucy deity, whose love for us never wanes, and in our hearts we feel thy charity as we twirl our forks with zeal and refrain. So let us raise our glasses high to the flying spaghetti monster in the sky.
Amen.
Dread, have you ever considered asking ChatGPT to make you a bunch more shanties for Pastafarianism?
That's who's producing these puppies.
Nice. Good job.
Yeah.
Good job. Good
I
job.
just say compose. So this last one here, I just said, ChatGPT, compose me a Pastafarian themed sonnet in the style of William Shakespeare.
Nice.
And that's what it did in less than 60 seconds.
What I do like about ChatGPT is how people are still interacting with it as if it is an actual thinking person, and will say like, hey, sir, could you please do something like this for me? And the computer's just like, get rid of all the extra little bits and where's the directive? But I like that we're still interacting with it in a human thing. It's, if anything, improves, I guess, our empathy, not just towards people, but like towards inanimate things too. Maybe we can take how we treat AI and apply it to how we treat the earth too, and like maybe become better.
I spent a lot of time cussing Siri. I don't treat Siri nicely at all.
No.
Get it wrong, man. I let the expletives fly.
Okay.
Yeah, so do I. Yeah.
Huh.
In fact, I've selected a female voice for my sat nav so that I feel better about arguing with her.
Wow, interesting. Hey, John Richards, how you been?
I've been fine, thank you very much. And it's all happening here.
It's all happening here? What does that mean?
Not here, not here, because I've lost my parliamentary background.
Okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't look, it looks way more free to me than that. So that's good. I can probably see some guys with guns on that road, so it's not that bad.
So what's happening here is, I may have told you last week that I'm organizing an event in London. And it's coming together. We've now got Richard Dawkins is going to be our guest of honor at this event. And in addition to that, I delivered a presentation at an independent school. I think I told you that was going to happen last week.
Very cool.
That is now in the past. and it's been videoed. And one day when they finish playing with it, we'll be able to upload it.
Wow, that's so wonderful. That's cool. Speaking of like filming stuff, my job is filming another commercial at our site, and they picked me to be the spokesperson for the show. They said Tyrone is the most engaging person that you can talk to, and I'm like, yeah, I know it. Thank you. So we're actually going to do is a 3-day shoot. We'll do some walkthroughs and B-rolls, and then I got to go to Nashville to do some interviews, and they're going to have like a makeup person and everything like that. And then the last thing we'll do, this is the fun new thing, they're actually going to follow me around town, go to some of my favorite spots, and like get film of me doing like disc golf throws, which I like, films of me like volunteering at like the local schools, and I'm like super happy about that. But like atheists having an impact on local society, and just having like a good time outside, and applying that to the work life that I have, it's like it's a nice full circle sort of testament of how much fun I've had since I started working here. It's just a really nice
normal
thing. Yeah, just being normal. It's like, oh, this is really cool. This is a really nice environment. This is really nice. Dred, want to check in with you. How you been?
Well, I'm still working up north here in Fort St. John. So
I can tell the Aurora Borealis is right behind you. It's really great.
Yeah, and the Northern Lights, the other Northern Lights too, right? Yeah.
Hang on.
So pretty soon they'll have what's called breakup, because as the frost leaves the ground, it'll be muddy and mucky, so they don't want big heavy trucks and big machinery driving through the Forest Service roads. So they call that breakup. So we'll be out of work here for about a month, I guess. So that'll let me go back home and catch up on my past stats and on my taxes and all that kind of stuff I got to do.
Yeah. So, Dred, you've never struck me as a person who didn't have something to do.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. Even on my days off, I spent hours. Well, I guess the last person who used my truck or was assigned the unit I have, which is a mobile medical treatment center, they didn't clean it after leaving the company. So I spent 6 hours having to do that to get it patient ready,
Wow.
Restocking supplies and all that kind of stuff. So
I've flown in to join you, Dred, and it is nice. It's nice up here. I agree.
Yeah.
Very cool. Larry, checking in with you. How you been?
I'm doing fine. Just working and playing computer games. Nothing new, really.
Have you read any good books lately?
I do a lot of reading online, but I haven't read any books lately. The last one I think I read was about Trump. I read 2 or 3 on him from his family and his lawyers and stuff.
Oh, gee whiz.
But
have you read any books about atheism lately? Maybe with a lady named Greta? I don't know. Anything you'd like to talk about and introduce?
Yeah, I haven't read a book, but
nudge.
I read her articles and listened to her podcast. She's an author and a podcast writer. She wrote an article back in 2011 that sparked a lot of discussion and a lot of approval from atheists, because she really hit the coin on the head or the nail. She wrote an article called 50 Reasons Why Atheists Are Angry and Have Every Right to Be. I've talked to a lot of people that ask in atheist tables, believers, non-believers, and people in between. And a lot of them seem to have the impression that atheists are angry. And sometimes we do get angry, especially when we're talking about the subject, religion, because of the problems that it's caused to society. And that's all. I mean, she's written another book since the article. She wrote a book called 99 Reasons. So she's expanded on the reasons why atheists are angry. Anyway, I believe you've done some research on her as well.
Yeah, I have. So I got in a copy of the digital book that she has, which is available on Amazon. I would suggest anyone who's interested check out Why Are Atheists So Angry? There is a paperback version you can get, but there's also a free version you can get that's also offered through the same link. So if you're interested in it, you can check that out too. There's also, I imagine a lot of this is also posted on her blog. She's making an attempt to make the information available to everybody. But the idea is 99 reasons why it can be so irksome to have to deal with religious people. And some highlights from that list. One is that she says that the framework of religion is such that it seems like it does significantly more good than harm, or at least that's how it frames itself to be. So even when atheists say, well, it's doing XYZ, believers can say, but look at all the good it's doing. I mean, just look at the fact that it helps people know how to treat other people. It gives people morals. It teaches them to be nice. It shows them, even if they can't think about morality or ethics, there's a God that's watching them. That makes them behave good, and therefore it's overall better than to take that all away and suddenly have complete anarchy. And the analogy that she brings up is the Santa delusion, which I think was really, really good in the sense that, okay, so you have this idea of Santa Claus, right? Are you guys familiar with Santa in UK and Canada? Or is it like, how do you say Santa Claus with a Canadian accent? That's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to think about it. Oh, Santa Claus. No. Saint Nicholas, right? So he watches you when you're sleeping. He knows if you've been bad or good. He gives you coal if you've been bad. He gives you presents if you've been good. So there's a whole carrot and a stick situation, and people can use that as a way to try to control their behavior. But I find that to be such a lacking ethic, because it's not really controlling the intention of a move, aside from just trying to reward good behavior and punish bad behavior. It's so superficial. Dred, you like philosophy. What do you think of the idea of like, hey, listen, if you're good, I'll give you candy. If you're bad, I'll give you coal. That's all the morality you need. Have fun, go outside and have a good day.
Yeah, let's do it.
That's not morality, though. It's obedience.
No, of course.
It's authoritarianism.
Yeah. It's how you train a dog.
Certainly Kant and Hume both argue from different sides that morality needs to be authentic. It has to guide your behavior authentically and not just arbitrarily, which is what the kind of morality that's offered from the Bible. I mean, we've said this a number of times, that there's nowhere in the commandments that says do not have sex with children or do not
enslave
rape
people.
So, and of course there's so many examples in the Bible, like do not hold slaves. Well, was it moral then to hold slaves because God said, well, this is how you treat them?
Yeah.
By all means, just as long as they're not your fellow Hebrews, go ahead, take your pick from any other peoples out and about, Yeah.
Larry, what do you think?
Well, you were saying earlier that the Bible teaches us how to treat people. Well, that sounds good, but does it teach us how does it teach us how to treat homosexuality or homosexuals, or in some cases, even Jews? The Bible says that the death of Jesus was on our head, meaning the Jews' head, and they've been persecuted for that particular line for thousands of years. How do you treat a woman who's not a virgin on their wedding night? It goes on and on and on. It's all obedience. Do this, don't do that, on pain of punishment.
But
obedience
I think
is not a morality.
But you're overlooking something. It makes people comfortable, and it's also useful to control people. Isn't that?
Well, sure, it's useful to control people, but is that a good thing? It's good to dictators. It's good to cult leaders. But it's not good to people per se.
No.
John, it makes people comfortable to believe in a God. Isn't that in its own right more good than any harm that can come about from it?
So does a teddy bear. I've got nothing against that. People want a bit of comfort. Get yourself a dummy. Or you don't call them. What do you call them? A comfort?
I don't know. What you're a pillow?
These things that babies have in their mouths. You
call them
pacifiers.
Pacifier. Yes. We would call them a dummy.
And
so
if you think about the word, it keeps them pacified. Same with religion.
Yes. Well, if you think about the word dummy, it's a dummy for a nipple.
I like it. I like it. I like it.
And it's a lot shorter than pacifier.
Weird question. So, weird question then. Do you still call people who are ignorant dummies?
Yes.
Okay.
But that's,
okay.
We've picked that up from you. That came across the Atlantic.
Wow. Okay. Cool. That's great. All right. I'm sorry. Continue with your manifesto.
Well, okay. What I wanted to do is start out with disagreeing with the premise of the question, because I've noticed in my interacting with a lot of lovely Americans like yourselves and Canadians, guys, that you have a lot of angry atheists, militant atheists, atheists which have a grievance and want to strike back because they've been hurt in the past. We don't have so many of them here because since very few of us were inducted into a religion and indoctrinated and didn't have to waste our lives going to church every Sunday and, behaving as though there was a God up there and, minding our various P's and Q's, we didn't have any of that. So we don't have the grievance. So we're not angry. I'm quite a cuddly bunny.
Well, there are still things that if you think about them can make you angry. Like, you don't have to deal with the religion that we do here ingrained in our society. I mean, 90% of our Congress and the president, the vice president, and all the leaders of each state are professed Christians. And it's really hard to even get elected unless you are a professing Christian.
Right.
And they tend to pass laws that support Christianity over secular values. And that alone is one main reason to get angry.
Right. And they exist in a level where they're not affected by it. Dred, what do you think?
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say one thing I hear in that shouldn't be confused is we're not angry, or atheists aren't angry at God.
Oh, no.
When I first, had that conversation with a fellow Mason to say that I could no longer be a Mason because I couldn't support the belief in that particular deity, he says, "Oh, well, you're one of those people that are angry at God." And it's like, well, no, that's you're missing the point. An atheist doesn't. It's not about anger at something that doesn't exist. It's just a lack of evidence for supporting a justified true belief in that kind of a thing, right?
Yeah,
right.
So it's one thing to be angry, but to be specific that we're not angry at God.
Yeah, I always like to ask them when they pose that question to me. I like, "Why are you angry at Santa Claus?" And the first thing out of their mouth is, "I'm not angry at Santa Claus. He's not real."
Right.
And then I just look at them. How can you be mad at something that is real?
I wanted to make a point too that while we're talking about like who are you angry at, when I say when I came into atheism, I came into it with a lot of anger, but not just for myself, but for myself as a believer. And the anger that I have towards, or the feelings that I have towards religion, are really more of like what it does to other believers from the position of I used to be a believer and you're still doing the things that I found to be vile and toxic against me to other people. And so I'm angry not for the sake of other believers, but just for the sake of compassion that I have for people in my culture, people in my social biosphere. Like there's people who I can see actively suffering, or at least being treated against their best interests by a dogma that's controlling how they think, how they appreciate other people in their lives, families being torn apart, groups being marginalized, science being inhibited for the sake of what? A couple of stories in a book. Like this is such a terrible situation. Like we just went through this whole vaccination crisis, and a lot of the inhibition that came from it was fears that were stoked by religious people, churches that we've had in this state who say, you don't need to take a vaccine, you can't trust it. Instead, here's a cup of water that has a red string dipped in it. You just drink from this water and you're good to go. Or you tie this around, or don't trust what your doctors say, trust what I say. Or we can pray this, virus away. Don't never come to church. Keep coming to church. And and continue to keep spreading it around. We've had active sources where we can see it harm everybody in our community. And I'd like to just move us away from that sort of mindset. And when I try to figure out where's the foundational person to argue against, it's not any particular pastor, it's not me, or it's not any particular believer, it's the religion, it's the framework of this, institution that tries to misinform people for its way to get money. And I just find that to be such a vile thing.
Yeah. Well, again, what you've done there is you've talked about culture and dogma, and it's so very different from where I am.
Ooh.
Because over here, if you're a politician, you want to keep your faith secret, because nobody will vote for you if you come out strongly as one faith or another. And we have a mixture of faith believers in our parliament. We have a Sikh, we have a Muslim, we have Christians, but it's low key, because it's not a vote winner, I'm afraid, in this country. Well, I'm not afraid, I'm pleased.
Good. Yeah.
Nevertheless, they still have 26 bishops in there, right?
Well, yeah, now we're working on that, because that is an anachronism. And I could tell you more about the campaigns that we're doing to get rid of that horrible leftover from King Henry VIII. But you mentioned red string. I don't know where that came to be a thing, but I do know that a pastor in South London was sentenced to 2 years in prison for selling red oil with a bit of string in it as a COVID cure, and charging £91, I think, for it, and telling his congregation that they could die if they didn't buy it. So
we've had people in the States sell sawdust. We've had people obviously pray to try to get it away. We've had, oh my gosh, any number of crackpot theories to try to get rid of COVID. We've had the president of the United States say you should drink diluted bleach. We've had so many we've had that one random there was a run on cough syrup that we've had just because people thought that you could do something in cough syrup to make it go away. We've had that weird new theoretical medicine that didn't pass through the FDCA or FDA that the president said he took, and then turned out he was being slightly sponsored by them. Vaccinations are good and they're useful, and they're just very straightforward when you understand how they work. They take a marginal level of scientific understanding to say you expose yourself to a small amount that can't make you sick, but can at least teach your body what that virus looks like. Then you'll know how to treat it in the future. Yeah, it's that straightforward and simple. But we don't live in a universe we don't live in a society in America where we support that kind of education uniformly across the states. And I feel like it's the conservativeness that we have in this country that's keeping that away from against
Larry wants to come in, but I want to continue with this in a minute. So let's have
go ahead.
There we go.
Okay. No, we're talking about reasons to be angry. Religion is used to divide people. I mean, right now America is divided worse than I've ever seen it, and I'm 70 years old. And why? Because the right have gotten in bed with fundamental religion, the evangelical right. And they are pushing all kinds of agendas, including abortion, hate for gays, et cetera, et cetera. And even George H.W. Bush said of atheists, he says, I don't know that atheists should be regarded as citizens.
Yes.
And I mean, it's that kind of thing that religion does that makes us angry. That is one of the 99 things that
Before we do go out to break, I do want to say, I've not been along as live as Larry, but I can throw this out and say I don't think things are getting more separated. If anything, the tools to keep us together are more available to us now more than ever have been before, and our access to information and media and culture outside of our sequestered area and disinformation along with that, but also knowledge and an awareness or instruction set to how to get better information with even shows like this are available to us more so now than they ever have been before. And I feel like today, more than any other day, I feel more capable of being an outspoken atheist than I had any time in my past.
True.
I think we're doing that because we're doing this work now. And I'm saying as long as we can continue that, we're going towards a good trajectory. And while things aren't good now, there's still a lot of work to be done. We are pioneers in the idea of free thought, and I want us to continue down that path. We're heading towards the end of the half hour. Larry, do you want to take us out?
Sure. You're listening to the Digital Freethought Radio Hour on WOZO Radio, 103.9 LPFM here in Knoxville, Tennessee. We'll be right back after this short break. Welcome back to the second half of the Digital Freethought Radio Hour. I'm DJ Doubter5, and we're on WOZO Radio, 103.9 LPFM here in Knoxville, Tennessee. Let's take just a moment to talk about the Atheist Society of Knoxville. ASK was founded in 2002. We're in our 21st year, and we have over 1,000 members, coming up on 1,100 here shortly. We have weekly in-person meetings every Tuesday evening in Knoxville's Old City at Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria. Look for us inside at the high top tables, or if it's pretty, outside on the deck. We also have a Tuesday evening Zoom ASK meeting. If you'd like to join us there, no matter where you live, email us for details at askanatheist@knoxvilleatheist.org or letschatse@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, meetup.com, or our website at knoxvilleatheist.org. By the way, if you don't live in Knoxville, you should still go to Meetup and do a search for an atheist group in your town. Don't find one?
Don't find one.
Start
one.
Right. Where do you want to pick up one? But
Yo, I wanted to talk a little bit before we move on to the next Greta Christina topic, the argument of utility, because I don't know if I got a chance to highlight my problems with that. So the idea behind the Santa delusion is that, hey, if it makes people comfortable and it has some uses, it's therefore good, and it's therefore useful. And Dredd, I'm sure you're familiar with Bentham as a moral philosopher. He's very strong in the argumentation that the more useful something is, the more moral it can be, and I know that's a truncated version of it, but the argument of utility has never been a very logical one for me.
Pervasive.
Yeah. It has a lot of limitations. In fact, could be really problematic. But a lot of the early philosophers are very religious, right? And so they would often color their philosophies with what makes the best sense in a religious context. And so Bentham had an argument for utility. The Santa delusion is very much an argument of utilities. Listen, I have this philosophy that helps make your kids behave better. It makes people comfortable. It makes them happy. Everybody wants to be happy, comfortable, and have well-behaving kids. Therefore, we don't have to think about this anymore. Let's just do it. I have a lot of problems with that. I like the idea of morality as a system to assess the consequences of my actions and try to use that as a framework to make the best action. And it's not so much a measurement of, okay, I want to do one action. Is it going to get me the most cake? Or is it going to get me the most whips at the end? It's like, no, I want an action that everybody can follow. I want to use my morality as a framework to come up with rules that society can follow that will be in their best interest and increase the maximum well-being of a particular population, or at least for what we're doing right now. And the better I can codify those rules and the better I can understand the exceptions, the more I can come up with valid and ethical punitive measures in the event that things get broken, that we can all come up with like some sort of social contract and agree upon. And we have essentially this living document, this system that we can constantly keep improving. I want it to be like a science where we don't have like these definitive, black and white statements that never change, but rather a system that we can keep cross-checking with each other. And with the Santa delusion, you never have that. You never have any way to fact check or ask Santa anything or come up with different sort of rewards or punishments that have been coal and I guess Xboxes or whatever Santa makes you. It's very much a one-sided system that's given to you by an authoritarian to elicit some sort of behavior from you. And it's only for the use of trying to make you be a bit more obedient, but not really a more moral person where you think critically about the actions that you perform in society. And when you're introduced to a novel new situation or problem, the Santa and the God stories don't offer you anything useful, whereas a morality system that you could work with can. And that's why I like the general moralities that we work with, or the more modern ones that we have now, because they've been worked on so much. Larry, what do you think?
Well, sure, I agree. One thing you should ask yourself when an authoritarian figure tells you that you need to do something is, how will that thing benefit the authoritarian figure? Because it usually does. And you need to question that.
It's true. It's true. And the weird, sad thing is, the modern moralities that we have also benefit authoritarian figures too, because it benefits everybody. But the Santa delusions and the God delusions that we have right now is so lopsided in who they benefit. The followers get to feel comfortable, whereas the leaders get to feel comfortable and get paychecks and get control, and oftentimes abuse it, but with no punitive measure or fact checking or systems of correction on their part. They exist in their own stratosphere of existence where they can't be questioned or treated or lose their job, and that is just prone to corruption. We just know the human system too well. Okay, guys, go ahead, John.
Well, you said a lot of stuff there.
Sorry.
I want to respond to that, because you used the expression, the idea of morality. You like the idea of morality. And then later on you said, we can come up with rules. So what you have illustrated, to my way of thinking, is that this is all thought. Morality is thought. It's in the conceptual realm. It's inside heads. And inside heads, of course, there's no limit. We can have any sort of thoughts we like. We can even have absoluteness. And then you went on to say about it's difficult to check these things. And of course, the only way we can check concepts is by investigating for congruence with observations in the natural realm. This is how science works. Ty, you know all about that. And of course, if you do that, you find that there is no absoluteness. It's not always bad in quotes, because that's a value judgment which a person has to come to. It's not always bad to kill. There's such a thing as mercy killing. Correct. And there's such a thing as killing somebody who would be exterminating somebody more vulnerable, in which case you could argue that on balance it's better to kill the killer. So what I'm coming around to here is that morality is a system of ideas.
Yes.
It doesn't really have any match with reality. So morality, equation mark, crossed out, reality. As in reality, what we have is acceptable social behavior. And we've evolved pretty much a system to do that. In fact, if you look further back in our ancestry, you'll find that you can even go back to insects and find that they have some relationship with each other. They can teach each other where to go for the best honey, and so on and so forth. So what I'm saying is that we have in our subconscious a system of rules. I'm not going to call them morality. They're generalized ideas. But then in our conscious mind, we can impose tweaks. We can say, I'm going to follow my subconscious or not. I'm going to review every incident as an individual case-by-case study. That was a rant.
And we model reality all the time. And what the beauty of morality is we can model not just actions, but behavior, or the intentions of our behavior, and model out potential consequences that aren't just based in physics, but how other people will react to that. In a society where people's actions influence and have consequences on each other, we can think about how that would impact each other and try to come up with the best system that makes everybody exists and hopefully a better state of well-being.
Exactly.
That is a valuable tool, and you can't just make a codified list of rules to be like, just don't steal, just don't think about your neighbor's wife, and don't love anyone.
We've evolved that tool. We've evolved we wouldn't be able to succeed as much as we have as a species if we hadn't learned to cooperate, which requires us to put ourselves in another person's shoes.
Right.
Because otherwise, if we treat them badly, we're going to lose their cooperation. and that could spell the end of the human race.
Larry, what do you think?
Well, I was going to just say that one of the things we're kind of talking around but not talking about is that we need to base the morality or the rules on empathy and compassion, not on authoritarianism. Also, we need to keep in mind equality. The founding fathers were very big on equality, even though they overlooked a large portion of the population when they did. We need to do better than that.
Yeah.
So authoritarian is not a good basis for empathy, or morality. Empathy, compassion, equality.
But here's the thing. It's really complicated to do that because there's a lot of different kinds of people. So wouldn't it be better if we could just put people into groups where it's easier to just say, well, those are the those and we're the us's?
No.
Because they aren't really people.
Short answer, no.
That's what religions do.
But we're the chosen people, and now we only have to worry about the people in this room.
Yeah, according to the book we wrote.
And everybody else is different. If we don't have
devil's advocate. So what Larry was doing when he was saying that authority is bad is he's pointing to religions, because religions are all up to their necks in authoritarianism.
Right.
We don't want that sort of stuff. We want democracy.
Right.
And I want to tell you about a show I watched this morning on our local TV. It's called Celeb Pilgrimage. And it was a collection of famous UK stars that have been on our small screens, and they were sent to walk hundreds of miles to some pilgrimage site. And they'd assembled a young influencer, a woman who has a channel on YouTube, and they had a Sikh who used to be a cricketer. They had a ex-Roman Catholic. They had a selection of different faith-based people, including some who profess to have no faith. And they sent them on this walk, and they were all conversing about what their upbringing had meant for them. And the influencer, the youngest lady there, said, "When I tell people that I'm a Christian, they laugh at me." That's the situation in the UK. If you admit that you are a believer, you're ridiculed.
Yeah.
Good. Well,
you want some of that, don't you?
You want some tongue in cheek with that. You want that to be in the same scope as someone who says, "Well, I read horoscopes." You want it to be like, that's right. A little silly, but you don't want it to be like, I'm better than you because you have this system of operation. And I also don't want that system of operation to dictate how my life is run. But like, at least in America is concerned, you are free to have a religion, but you should also be free of that religion without any sort of degree of prejudice. And if we can just get to there, it's nuanced, but if we can get to there, I'd be so happy. Because again, we have a president right now, Joe Biden, Catholic, staunch Catholic, absolutely does believe in God, goes to church before he even gets enrolled in his does his swearing on the Bible and becomes a president, but is willing to go against his religion in terms of policy for the better interests of the people that he is governing. And I feel like that's what we want from our leaders. Like, hey, if you got a religion, that's fine, but you're the president. So be the president, and then on your own free time, pray to whoever you want to believe in. I'd love to have that. We had the flip on the last president. We had a president who didn't even know how to hold a Bible the right side way, and was just terrible from front to back. I would rather have a president that's religious and can separate his religion from his policy than one who has no scruples whatsoever. Like there's clearly an in between there that we can get.
Follow Europe. We're ahead over here.
Okay, good. Yeah, we can learn a lot of things from you. Guaranteed. Dread Pirate, got a question from you. It's coming directly from the book. I would like to get your feedback on the nuanced nature of why atheists might be angry. And I'm going to ask this to Apostafarian. So Greta Christina writes in her book, you might have noticed, based on when you read this book, that much of what makes atheists angry isn't the bad things religious believe, or isn't the bad thing that religions do to believers as atheists. A huge amount of our anger is about the bad things believers do to other believers. That's the gist of this book. Atheist anger doesn't prove that we're selfish or joyless or miserable. It shows that we have compassion and a sense of justice for our fellow people. Right. We're angry because we see terrible harm all around us and we feel desperately motivated to stop it. Dread, what do you think about that?
True.
Well, I've said this before, how interesting I find it that, Christians, Jews, Muslims, Buddhists, they will, gather together and fight against atheists as though, like you were saying about elected officials in America, as long as they're religious, they stick together until all the atheists are gone, and then they squabble amongst themselves. So it's very much the in-group mindset. It's an in-group as long as you're religious in some way, until you end up having to, it's like musical chairs, right?
Right.
And everyone wants the atheist to be the first one off a chair.
It kind of reminds me. So I think I can give credit to this to Europe, but there was a period of time where people did not believe in germs. It was a concept called germ theory. And so they realized, like, hey, if we wash our hands before we deliver babies, the chances of the babies living is substantially higher than us just being macho men and just walking into the lady and being like, I'll take that baby out of you. It's like, do you want to wash your hands first? Like, no, I don't believe in germs. You can't trust these.
Light me a cigarette.
Yeah, light me a cigarette. Blowing in the baby's face. She's totally fine. So there's the idea of, like, there was once upon a time where no one believed that germs existed or were a problem. But then there was a group that was like, I am anti-germ and I'm going to wash my hands. And that's a change, or at least a group that might have been different from the prevailing misconception at the time. And it took a lot of effort. It wasn't overnight to get people to adopt the practice to wash their hands, to see the benefit of it, to understand the science behind it, to appreciate that as a culture, and to build infrastructure to allow people to wash their hands more regularly. Right now, we're very much in that same analogous scope where there's a group of people who, at least in America, are not popular just due to the fact that they agree not to wash their brains with dogma or a doctrine or something like that. I know I kind of reversed the analogy, but like there's a God contaminated society, and there are people who have washed their brains from it. And they're looking at all the other people and saying, listen, you don't have to do these things. And in fact, it's kind of harmful if you maintain this current practice that you're doing. It's good for you to wash out your philosophies and ideas and see which ones are the best afterwards, because there's a lot of grime and dirt with the current practice that you're following. And there are people like, I don't believe in critical thinking. I don't believe in modern medicine. I don't believe in evolution. I don't believe in science. I don't believe in people who education for many people, because that's just going to affect me in some way. And my only response to that is, it's only going to make your life better, guaranteed. And not only will it make it better, but it'll make the life of your kids and our culture and everything else substantially better in your interest. Whereas the current life practice that we have, where you maintain this grime and dirt, puts you at a lower standard of life that you could be able to get out of if you were only willing to ask yourself some questions and shed some of these outdated ideas and misconceptions that you have. So when I see what I hear from Greta is this argument that I'm not angry what religion did to me. In fact, I'm happy that I went through the experience that I did and got out of it as a better critical thinking person. I envy it more so than even people who've never had the chance to be indoctrinated and get out of it. So John, I'm happy you've never been indoctrinated, but I am also happy that I've gone through that practice, because I'm substantially more well guarded against stuff like that moving forward in the future. But I'm also angry that we live in a world where we allow believers to still do that to other believers. And I am motivated to try to stop that for their sake, because I'm not fundamentally a different person than I was when I was a believer myself, but I'm a much better person as a result of being able to now think critically for myself. And I just want other people to have that opportunity for them.
Well, I take that point, and the only difference between us is that I don't have the grievance because I was never indoctrinated, but I'm still keen to stop people from from forcing their belief system to others, because I see the harm that it does.
And I worry, and I wouldn't say everyone should go through an indoctrination phase, but I've lived in Sweden for a bit. So like there's America, which is very, you know how America is. And then there's Britain, who is in the process of like egalitarianism, but also it's still it's still nested in there somewhere. You still got the priests in the parliament, but then you have Sweden, which is like, that is such a non-conceptual thing here. And the churches we have are like just where we play volleyball. Like, we don't take any of this seriously. But you get people who never get the chance to think critically, and or at least have their suspicion radar, well calibrated for when the Christians start moving in, because there are a lot of people who are targeting Norway and Europe for the next wave of religion. And there's already books and people doing missions there, and Mormons learning Swedish, because it's a very captivating demographic to get. And there's a lot of money in those areas, and they're ripe for plucking until those people are willing to question just as aggressively as a former religious person would be, or someone who is, in England right now too. So I just say there's no excuse not to know how to think critically. And it's not like something that you just get intuitively. It's something you need to practice. You got to work on it. And it's a skill that you have to develop, and it needs to be trained, and you have to maintain it. And it's, as a result, I want everybody, not just, people who are religious, to learn how to think critically. I want even people who've never been exposed to religion to go through the same practices as well. That's how we get everybody out of it at once.
Yeah. A big part of this thing too is that we have to guard each other. I mean, the idea, if you check out the Wikipedia entry for fallacies, you'll find, about 200 of them. And that's what we need to guard each other against is, as a critical thinker, it's not just enough to know what those 200 are and try to figure out which ones you're employing at any given time.
Right.
It's we have to watch each other's backs with respect to what other people say to us about different things, and say, are you sure that isn't some kind of a cognitive bias that you're trying to sneak in there?
Yeah.
Not intentionally, but sometimes these things slip past us. We're not perfect, and as you indicate, reason doesn't come natural to humans. It's a muscle, like intellectual muscle. We have to continually practice and work on it. But like I say, it's something we have to be mindful to keep an eye open on our fellow critical thinking beings.
Dred, you make a great point, because you could think of like ideas and theories and hypotheses are sort of like a pot of cake batter, right? And logical fallacies are flies, right? And you don't want them in your cake batter. And if you see one like sitting on the side of the bowl but not in the batter, you're like, you want to tell the guy, the baker, your friend, hey, there's a fly on your bowl. And you don't want the reaction to be like, oh, it's fine. It's just it's okay. Like, it's not that big of a deal. It's like, yes, it is. It's or I'm not going to take your cake. I'm not saying it ruins the entire cake. It probably adds some good protein, but like, you can make that same cake without that fly there. And I'm only letting you know that for your own best interest. And so like the greatest thing that another critical thinker can do for another critical thinker is to think critically about the things that they're saying and be critical. That's always in the interest of everybody, right? We don't want to eat cakes with flies. John Richards, what do you think?
Do you have Garibaldi biscuits in the States?
I don't know. Larry,
I don't know.
I've never heard of it before. You might be talking about cookies. Are you talking about cookies?
No, I'm talking about biscuits. Garibaldi biscuits. He was an Italian chef, I think. But we used to call them fly biscuits because they're two slices of biscuit with a load of currants in between, and it looks very.
That's great, guys. I think we're near the end of the show. There was a lot more that we'd want to cover, but maybe we can move to another.
We still have a few minutes, though.
Okay, so Dred, where can we find your stuff at?
I'm at Mind Pirate on YouTube, and when I'm on, I live stream this at 7 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time now.
Nice.
And then when I'm on for Global Atheist News, Views of the News, that's at 11. Is it 11 or 12 now?
Well, what we've done, Dred, is we've kept it at your time and altered the English time to suit. And now, how kind is that?
So
Well,
what time is it?
awesome.
What time is it? English time or Greenwich Standard Time?
Well, tonight it's 6 p.m.
6 GMT.
So that makes that 11 a.m. for me?
You're where you are.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
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 Hopefully I'll be there. I've got some training to do at 9 a.m. So I'm hoping it's less than 2 hours. And where I train is just a couple minutes away. So yeah, check me out on Mind Pirates, and I've now been doing weekly benedictions on there as well. So if you miss it here, then go there.
Yeah. I wonder if God wanted everyone to be able to pray to him at the same time. Why didn't he just make the earth flat, and just flat and like it's on one side and put it on a turtle? It'd all be good. Well, John Richards, where can we find your stuff at?
Freethought channel. That's where everything is put. And last night, I want to tell you about our guest on Freethought Hour last night. It was a South African guy called Davi Vendenheven, and he was fantastic. He's what he isn't into. It's all about neural engineering, mechatronics, free thought, free will. Honestly, if you can get to watch that show, you won't be sorry.
Sure.
Very cool. Very cool. You can find my stuff on YouTube. Let's chat. I'll throw it up to Larry to close out the show. Thank you guys so much for coming by.
Sure. My content can be found at digitalfreethought.com. Be sure to click on the blog button for our radio show archives, atheist songs, and many articles on the subject of atheism. I have a book, Atheism, What's It All About, on Amazon. My YouTube channel is at Doubter5. If you're having trouble really leaving religious beliefs behind, you can get help from recoveringfromreligion.org. Check that out. And by the way, if you're a member of clergy, but haven't come to see that the claims of religion are not justified, but you're stuck in the pulpit, there's help for you at theclergyproject.org. Actually, just drop it's clergyproject.org. Remember, everybody is going to somebody else's hell. The time to worry about it is when they prove that heavens and hells and souls are real. Until then, don't sweat it. Enjoy your life. And we'll see you next Wednesday night at 7 o'clock on WOZO Radio here in Knoxville. Say bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.